was created in
en leur
order to
fournissant
respond to the
une
needs
électricité solaire compétitive,
by
fiable
providing
et
competitive,
décarbonée.
reliable, and decarbonated energy to the companies in
Nos solutions
Africa.
s'installent au sol ou en
Our
toiture
solutions can
et
be
sont
done
dimensionnées selon
either
la
on the ground
consommation du
or on the
client sur
roof
site.
and can be, of course,
Cette
adjusted
nouvelle source
according to
d'énergie vient
consumption
réduire
of
l'approvisionnement
the users.
depuis le
This
réseau public ou
energy
depuis les
source of
générateurs
energy
diesel.
then complements
Nos
the
clients
other
génèrent
energy that is
ainsi des
provided from the
économies
grid.
tout
Our
en
clients
augmentant
can
leur
generate
autonomie énergétique
savings
et
while
en
increasing
réduisant
their
leur empreinte
energy
carbone.
autonomy and by reducing their carbon print.
Cecilio accompagne ses clients sur
Cecilio
l'ensemble
then
des étapes du projet,
accompanies its
le
clients
développement, la
throughout the phases of the
conception,
project
l'installation et la
development,
maintenance.
design, the installation, and
Les systèmes
maintenance.
photovoltaïques sont livrés clés en
PV
main
systems
sur
are
site en
provided
Afrique.
turnkey on
Ils sont
site in
proposés à
Africa.
l'avant
They are
ou
suggested
encore à la location
before.
lorsque les
They
clients
can
ne
be
souhaitent pas
sold
porter
or
l'investissement.
on lease when the
Pour rendre
customers
cette
cannot
location
pay for
d'infrastructure
the
possible, nous avons conçu une
cost.
station
We
solaire
also
Cecilio
designed a
standardisée,
solar plan
installée
that
au
is
sol avec
standardized
la
that
même
can be
robustesse
installed
que
on
les
the
grandes
ground with
centrales
the
solaires,
same
mais qui peut être déplacée.
same
Ainsi,
strength,
selon les
of course,
conditions de
but can
location
be
et les
moved from one
circonstances,
place to the other
Cecilio peut tout
according
à
to
fait
the conditions.
récupérer
Of
la
course,
station
Cecilio
et la
can
déployer chez
recover
un nouveau
its
client.
plant and can
La
put it
Cecilio
or
Solar Station est
install it
une
otherwise.
solution photovoltaïque qui a été
We have a
développée par
PV solution
Cecilio
that
et
was
qui permet
developed by
d'apporter de
Cecilio, then
l'électricité à un client
can
et de venir
provide
hybrider son induction
electricity to
électrique.
different clients
Qu'il soit
by
raccordé sur un
be them
générateur
connected
diesel,
to
qu'il
a
soit
diesel
raccordé sur un
generator
réseau
or
coûteux,
connected to
voire mal
power
fonctionnant, la
grid
Cecilio
or
Solar Station va lui permettre
we have a
d'avoir une
solution
induction
that
électrique
enables the
plus
clients to
performante,
have a more
moins
performing
chère et
energy
surtout sécurisée grâce à
connection,
l'énergie du soleil
less
qui est
costly
inépuisable.
and much
Afin
more, of
d'assurer le
course,
meilleur à ses
reliable
clients,
thanks to the
Cecilio décline et adapte les
solar
savoir-faire issus
energy.
de la grande centrale au
So
sol
we have
au
now
segment de la moyenne puissance.
we have, of course,
Le centre d'expertise et d'ingénierie,
developed our
basé à
engineering
Aix-en-Provence,
expertise center that is
sélectionne
based
les
in
meilleurs
Aix-Provence, that
matériels
selects the
et
best
applique les normes
material
internationales,
and
ainsi que les plus hauts
according to
standards
the
de
best
l'industrie,
international
de la phase de
standards
conception jusqu'à la mise en service.
from the design
C'est
to
également
the
pendant la phase de
operation of the
maintenance,
systems, but
dont
also
la bonne
during the maintenance
application
phase,
est
we
clé
also
dans la
ensure,
durabilité des installations.
of course, the reliability
Cela
of
passe
the
également par la
installation.
formation de
We
15
also
collaborateurs
conduct
de
training of
Cecilio
our
aujourd'hui,
15
et 25 partenaires, installateurs et mainteneurs
partners
répartis
and
sur le
other
territoire
partners
africain, mais
who
aussi de
are
nos clients utilisateurs
based everywhere
pour
in
que les
Africa, but
centrales
also
Cecilio
have
tiennent
clients
toutes
and
leurs
users
promesses.
for our
L'approche de
Cecilio
Cecilio est une
partners. Of
approche
course,
locale, puisque
we
nous
have a
créons
local
des filiales
approach
dans les pays
since
où
we
nous
create
développons nos projets,
subsidiaries
et nous
in
travaillons
countries
toujours
where
avec
we
des
develop
partenaires locaux.
our
L'idée,
projects,
c'est
and
de
we
travailler
work with
main dans la main,
local
de faire des
partners. We
partenariats
work hand in
gagnant-gagnant,
hand, and
avec
we have a
transfert
win-win
de
solutions
connaissances
with the
depuis
transfer
Cecilio
of
vers les
knowledge
partenaires locaux, mais
and
aussi
from
également
Cecilio to
de
local
nos
partners,
partenaires
but
locaux
also
vers
from our
Cecilio
local
sur la
partners towards
connaissance de
Cecilio
ces pays et
based on the
s'imbriquer
local
réellement
knowledge
dans le
of
tissu
the
économique local.
context.
Depuis sa création en 2016,
Since its
Cecilio a
creation in
déjà mis en
2016,
service 14
Cecilio then
installations au
implemented
Mali, au
14 different
Niger, au
installations,
Ghana et en Somalie.
Mali,
En ce
Niger,
moment, 8 projets sont en
Niger,
cours de
Ghana, and
réalisation au
Somalia. For now,
Sénégal, au Mali,
other
à
8 other
Djibouti, au
projects are
Niger,
being
et
implemented
le portefeuille
in
de
Senegal
prospects
and
en
Niger,
discussion
and
ne
our
cesse
portfolio
d'augmenter.
is increasing or
Aujourd'hui,
expanding day after
Cecilio est
day.
toujours animé par
Today,
l'ambition qu'il a
Cecilio
vu naître,
we
celle d'être un
we
acteur de
still have the
référence des
ambition, of course,
installations
to be then
photovoltaïques
the
pour les
top
entreprises
leader
en
when it
Afrique
comes to
subsaharienne.
PV solutions in
Pour
sub-Saharan
réaffirmer cette
Africa.
ambition et
In order
après
to
5
reaffirm
années
this
de
ambition
croissance
after 5
réussie,
years of
Cecilio entre dans une
successful
nouvelle
growth,
phase de
Cecilio
son
now we start
développement
a
en
new
lançant
phase in our
4 grands
development.
chantiers.
So we have
La
4 big
consolidation de nos
projects,
process
the
internes et de notre
consolidation of our
innovation qui
internal
sont si
processes and
appréciés
our
par nos
integration,
clients.
which are very much
La poursuite de
appreciated by
notre
our
développement
clients.
à
We
l'international avec
continue
l'ouverture de
our
nouvelles
international
filiales en
development by
Afrique et
opening up new
l'identification
subsidiaries
de
in Africa
nouveaux
and the
partenariats
identification
locaux.
of new local partners,
L'accélération de
the
notre proposition
acceleration
de
of our
location avec notamment la mise en place de
lease
partenariats
proposals by
industriels et
setting up
financiers,
then
le
industrial and
renforcement
financial
de la marque
partnerships and
Cecilio, gage de
reinforcing
qualité
the
et d'engagement.
Cecilio brand, which is very reliable and committing.
La levée de fonds 2021 proposée par WICID va nous permettre d'enclencher ce programme de développement.
Will help us, of course, to start this development project in 2022. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alain Missionier. I'm president of IME for those who do not know me. So today, our conference the conference will be moderated, facilitated by our friend Professor.
Simplement, je souhaitais vous souhaiter à tous la bienvenue. C'est le deuxième webinaire de l'année. Normalement, on fait une conférence mensuelle. Là, on démarre fort, on en fait 2. Alors, je vais vous expliquer pourquoi. En fait, cette conférence s'inscrit dans une série de conférences liées à l'étude de faisabilité de l'Observatoire mondial des ressources en eau non conventionnelles et des énergies renouvelables dédiées ou associées. Et donc, nous avons eu une série de webinaires, de conférences sur la réutilisation des eaux usées, sur le dessalement. Et aujourd'hui, donc…
So today, this conference then concerning this study on renewable energies associated to water and energy nexus in general. This alliances which is indispensable to the operation of the two business or activity sectors. In order to do this quite exceptionally, so we have a number of speakers, and in the different in addition to Dr. Jauad Kherraz, who is, of course, giving us the privilege to be the keynote speaker. But Jauad is a former member of IME. He knows very well IME, and today he will tell us more. Today is director of RCREEE, which is an institution that is specialized in renewable energies, which is based in Cairo. So in addition to Dr. Jauad, we also have new other members for 2 years, at least, quite recent members through the Tecilio company. And you have just watched the movie on Tecilio. So IME, we also, and the idea that started 2 years ago, we invited also SMEs, we also invited startups and like Tecilio, and we would like to take the opportunity, today's opportunity, to highlight their work, and particularly when they're based in geographic areas. So this is the case of Tecilio. This is also the case of Tergis, who you will see them, but also the Cyprus Institute. It's a research center on energy, environment, and the water, and it is based in Cyprus. Thanks, of course, to our good relations with one of the directors, who is the Professor Fadi Kamer, and who we all know for quite long now. And he's Lebanese. He's Lebanese, but originally and former, of course, water director, the Minister of Water and Energy in Lebanon. We also have two new partners. That we have three with the RCREEE, but we have two new partners in the field of energy, future partners, at least, of the Water Institute, Mazen, which is the #1 operator for renewable energies in Morocco, and IRISEN, which is also a research institute on renewable energies, also based in Morocco. So I wanted to clarify, if you want, the framework of our conference today, of our lecture. This will also help us to complement our feasibility study for the creation of an observatory, which is worldwide observatory, which will be focusing on the Mediterranean and the Sahel also. Nicolas Roche is taking part to the study. The study is led by François Gaffer from the from the IME, from Mediterranean Water Institute, with two other actors, two specialized in desalination, two specialized in the reuse of wastewater, in order, of course, to present the results of this study on the occasion of the World Water Forum. And for this reason, of course, so we have asked for two specific sessions, one that will be devoted to the observatory, and the other will be devoted to the response that can be provided by the Mediterranean, further to the Mediterranean Water Forum held in Malta. And for these two sessions, we had the honor, of course, to be agreed, if you want to, by the World Water Council this week, which confirmed their agreement to hold these two specific sessions in Dakar. Without any further notice, I will give the floor to Mr. Roche to moderate the session, and say I wish you all well, with the hope, of course, for all of us to be able to meet. We've been saying this over and over for 2 years, and hopefully we can meet all live and direct. I wish you all a very good seminar. Thank you, Alain, for this great introduction. Good morning, everyone, and my best wishes, because we can still wish us well for this new year. Hopefully that this year will be different from other years. So I really hope that you're all well. So today, then, this webinar, it is a webinar that is extremely important, and you know that it's on the energy water nexus. We cannot have water without energy. We cannot have energy without water. So these are two coupled sectors, and they may face probably similar challenges probably for the same type of communities. Those who cannot have access to water probably cannot have access to energy. Therefore, so hopefully we will be discussing with all of this then the water energy nexus, and particularly these issues are extremely interlinked, intertwined, and of course, they relate to the use of renewable energies. So we'll focus today then the presentations on renewable energies if you want not to waste more time. So we have two pieces of information. First, there is simultaneous interpretation in French and in English. You simply need to go to the interpretation globe at the bottom of your screen and to choose your language, to pick the language.
If you want to listen the webinar in English or in French. Pour les questions,
when it comes to the questions, of course, we have the chat, and I invite you to please make as much as you want the chat. You can write your questions in French or in English, and we'll try to summarize the questions and to ask them to different speakers. And our speakers, of course, will have the opportunity within the remaining time to answer on the chat. So we have 6 presentations. We will try to be very brief. We will start immediately with the first presentation will be made by Dr. Jauad Kherraz, who is now Executive Director of the Regional Center of Renewable Energies and Energy Efficiency, which is an intergovernmental agency that is based in Cairo. Dr. Jauad Kherraz is a specialist in desalination. He worked a lot on the Mediterranean with the Research Center on the Middle East in Oman, and also on the SME project in France, and also at the University of Valencia. So presentation will be in English. So Dr. Jauad, we give you the floor. Vous avez 15 minutes.
Bonjour tout le monde. Merci Nicolas. Merci
Good
Alain.
afternoon, everyone. Good morning, Alain. Good morning, Nicolas. It's a real pleasure. So if you allow me, I will switch to English.
Can you put your presentation full screen, please?
I put it full screen already. I don't know why. I will try to put it again. Just a second. Okay. Is it full screen right now?
Yes, but you have to just to go to where you have 3 points to leave presentation mode.
Okay. Presentation view.
Screen.
Now it's okay.
No.
Sorry, I will try to again. Is it okay right now?
Yes, it's okay. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So good afternoon. Thanks a lot, Alain, Nicolas, all the IME team. It's a pleasure to be with you today. So I will talk a little bit about the water energy nexus. I will then shed the light on the renewable energy, in particular in desalination. So I will try to give some examples on the nexus. I will try to also to show the interlinkages between water and energy, in particular in desalination, and then I will try to give more details about renewable desalination, in particular desalination powered by solar. I will end up my presentation with some recommendations. So as you know all, the water energy nexus is not a new concept. It has been there for more than 10 years, since the Conference of Bonn 2011. The whole idea of the water energy nexus concept is to improve the efficiency of the whole system. So instead of just increasing the productivity of one on the expense of another one. So the idea is to improve the efficiency of both energy and water at the same time. We know the interconnection and the interlinkages between both sectors. We know that energy intervene at the whole water cycle. Energy is needed to abstract, to produce, distribute, to treat, to desalinate water. Energy is needed also to pump irrigation water, etc. From the other side, we know that almost 80% of renewable energy comes from hydropower, from dams. Water is needed also in power plants for cooling. And also we need water to clean photovoltaic panels. Also in CSP needs a lot of water in operations. So we see clearly the interconnection between water and energy. Some figures at international level, we know that the water sector use almost around 4% of the global electricity produced. In particular, 40% for abstraction, 25% convenience, and 20% wastewater treatment. Energy consumption in the water sector also is expected to double through 2040, and as a result of increasing seawater desalination. As you can see, probably in the last years, we have a considerable number of desalination projects in the pipeline in Egypt, in Morocco, in Tunisia, and all this kind of project obviously will need an increasing amount of energy. Just to show you some figures, I mean challenges of the water energy nexus. If we consider the example of vehicles, alternative vehicles, So obviously the idea is that they use less petroleum, but producing their fuel gathers more water. So if we look at the ethanol vehicle, for example, we need like 130 to 6,000 gallons of water to travel 100 miles. In the case of hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, we need 42 gallons, and plug-in hybrid electrical vehicle, we need 24, and for the gasoline one, we need 7 to 14. Another example is when we look at the generation of 1 megawatt hour electricity using water. I mean, in the case of gas steam combined cycle, we need around 7,000 to 20,000 gallons. And in the case of coal and oil, we need 20,000 to 50,000. In the case of nuclear, 25,000 to 60,000. So a huge amount of water, obviously. On the other side, also, energy is intensively required to treat water, to produce water, to transport water. So in the case, for example, to produce clean water from lake or river, surface water, we need 1,400 kilowatt hour of energy. Groundwater, we need 1,800. In the case of wastewater, around 2,000 up to 3,300. And in the case of seawater, obviously desalination require a little bit more energy, so much more kilowatt hours. Some examples quickly of the nexus. We know, I mean, generally speaking, 6 to 18% of a city's energy demand is used to produce, treat, and transport water. So in this kind of configuration, without considering the nexus approach, we have, for example, as you can see here, city, suburbs, industry, and we can have wastewater plants that treat the wastewater coming from the different sites. When we use or we adopt the nexus approach, we need to have this kind of configuration with the distributed water and power, with the right mix, the right place, and the right price. So this is, I mean, the added value of applying the nexus at urban level. Another example that I can show you here, obviously, higher technology to treat impaired water requires higher energy demand. In the particular case of desalination, whether we consider the thermal desalination technologies or the membrane desalination technologies, so huge amount of energy, so from 30 to 50% of energy, contribution to the cost. So 50% of the cost is coming from the energy. When we consider the nexus approach, obviously.
Please, Jauad, could you please speak slowly for the translation, please?
I will try. Thank you, Nicolas.
So thank you so much.
In terms of technology improvements, if we compare the cost of desalination 20 years ago with now, I mean, there was a considerable improvement. So we can see here the cost of desalination has been decreasing considerably. The cost of water reuse as well. The cost of traditional water supply here, I can't interpret like, I mean, obviously we are depleting our aquifers, and we are getting more deeper to get groundwater, and obviously this means a considerable cost. Now we are talking about a record in Hassian seawater desalination plants in Abu Dhabi or in Dubai is about $0.30 per cubic meter. I mean, very, very, very competitive price. So obviously it depends on many parameters. I will not get into details now, but just to show you that when we consider the nexus, we improve a lot in terms of cost, in terms of energy efficiency as well. Another example of the water energy nexus is, you know, all of you, the impact of climate change, in particular in the Mediterranean, the impact of the consecutive drought seasons. So that's impact directly on the reservoir or the dams level, and obviously this impacts directly on the hydropower, on the electricity produced. So when we consider the nexus approach, we reduce water consumption, we replenish reservoirs, and we also consider using other kind of renewable energy sources that could be wind, solar, and others. Another final example here is energy exploration and production, which generates large quantities of wastewater. In the Gulf countries, we call it produced water. For example, in Oman, with each barrel of oil that we extract with it 9 barrels of water. So huge amount of water which is contaminated by heavy metals that need to be treated before using it, or injecting it again in the aquifer. So consider the nexus. Obviously, we need to to use advanced wastewater solutions to reduce such water losses, and more likely to enable water reuse for irrigation or whatever other kind of uses. I will give you here a concrete example of a nexus, which is Agadir RO or desalination plant in Morocco. This plant started operations last year, I think in April or May last year. We are talking about a capacity of 275,000 cubic meters per day. In the second stage, it will reach more than 400,000 cubic meters per day. It is powered by Ouarzazate Noor CSP plant through high tension wires. This plant is supposed to provide water not only for drinking, but also for irrigation. That's why we can consider this example as a water energy food nexus, not only water energy nexus. So obviously it helped a lot the region in dealing with water problems and also deal with the farmers' needs in terms of irrigation water. Another example, this time related to wastewater treatment, and Kherraz Samra wastewater treatment plant in Jordan. This is actually an interesting project where we can consider as well water energy food nexus. We are talking about a PPP project, so public-private partnership project, a BOT contract over 22 years. The annual average energy consumption of the activated sludge system at Kherraz Samra plant was around 62 gigawatt hour in 2014. The plant has achieved a self-energy sufficiency of 78 to 90% between 2009 and 2014. So this energy saving is achieved by utilizing renewable resources, including hydraulic energy and the biogas produced through anaerobic digestion. And this reused treated wastewater is transported to Amman. I can show you here some figures on energy demand of water. This coming from Mike Hightower from the US. So if we look at the freshwater importation over 100 or 300 miles, it requires from 10 to 18 kilowatt hour per kilogallon. Seawater RO, it requires between 12 and 20 kilowatt hour per kilogallon. Brackish desalination, it requires in total between 8 and 12 kilowatt hour per kilogallon. And when we look at aquifer storage and recovery, we're talking about 5 to 11 kilowatt hour per kilogallon. If we look at the Arab region, this is from ESCWA. In Jordan, for example, water accounts for 15% of the total annual electricity generated. In Libya, groundwater pumping accounts for almost 15% or 14% of total fuel consumption. Another example now from Europe, the energy saving potential for drinking water supply. This is coming from Eurostat 2018. So I show you in this table here a breakdown of the volume treated and energy requirements for each stage of the water sector at the level of European Union in 2017. So we look at here drinking water supply, desalination for urban use, and the wastewater treatment. So we are talking about in total 2.6% share of European Union electricity. Another example that I need to show you here, the advancement at the level of technology in desalination. In general, RO now is dominating the market. We're talking about 70% of the whole desalination capacity worldwide is RO, reverse osmosis. And in general, the average is 3.5 kilowatt hour per cubic meter, energy consumption. But we are now reaching 2.7, 2.9 kilowatt hour per cubic meter. And still, I think there is margin for improvement in the next upcoming years. This coming from the US Department of Energy, where they analyzed the energy bandwidth in desalination RO. And they show here the current typical consumption, which is 3.3 kilowatt hour per cubic meter. And they show here the state of the art. So there are some laboratories and even some pilots where they are talking about 2.7 kilowatt hour per cubic meter. And the thermodynamic limit is between 1 or 1.5 kilowatt hour per cubic meter. So there is still improvement margin of improvements in terms of R&D and innovation to make this energy efficiency even better in desalination. Obviously, when we talk about energy efficiency in desalination, there are many parts where we can still do improvements in terms of membranes, in terms of energy recovery devices, in terms of chemicals, etc. But I think the most considerable now point is the procurement, the regulation, the energy cost, which now is becoming, an important factors for, improving the cost of desalination per cubic meter. Also, energy efficiency in wastewater treatment plants. In the US, we are talking about 2 to 4% of the total electricity in the US. Their energy use is projected to increase, obviously, as population increase, and also the regulation becoming more strict. I can also mention that energy efficiency has slowly crept into the water and the wastewater industry as the economic benefit has become more obvious, but there is still potential of significant improvement in the upcoming years. Sorry. The renewable energy in the water energy nexus, in this figure from Irina, I'm showing here some renewable energy technologies, including solar PV, wind, which are significantly less water intensive than conventional. You can compare here in terms of estimated life cycle water withdrawal factors for different electricity generation technologies. We can see here wind and PV, geothermal are consuming, or we are talking about withdrawal of much less water than other conventional energy technologies. In terms of innovation and renewable energy technologies on the impacts in the nexus, I can show you here the technologies that can boost water security by improving accessibility, affordability, and safety. We can highlight the water pumping, the water heating, but in particular desalination and wastewater treatment. So in this area, obviously there is a lot of potential to improve. The agriculture sector and the efficiency in both energy and the water sectors. In terms of renewable desalination, we have so many options. Obviously, we have so many renewable energy alternative or options, and also we have on the other side different kind of desalination technologies. A lot of studies, a lot of papers has been published to show which are the best combinations in terms of coupling renewable energy with desalination technologies. And the most popular, obviously, is solar PV in particular. So the challenging aspect of renewable desalination is that in general, desalination technologies in particular are all work in steady state conditions, while renewable energy sources are obviously no stationary. So we need obviously adjustments for continuous supply, eventually energy storage using batteries, or we need to adapt desalination technologies to variable operation. In case of PV RO, either we have standalone configuration, we can use batteries, we can also have configuration where we can connect to the grid. So we use the grid after the daily hours to continue producing fresh water. In terms of greenhouse gas impact versus technology readiness level of different kind of combinations, we see that PV RO and wind RO are the best technologies in terms of technology readiness level. They are there, mature technologies, but also they are obviously have much less carbon footprints compared to other technologies. So just to show you, obviously solar desalination has several advantages. We are talking about reducing carbon footprints, decreasing operational costs. We can also eliminate the link between water prices and fuel costs. This is very important. And we can see here that the most dominant in the market right now, PV RO, 32%, and then we have wind RO, we are talking about 19%. Solar desalination has several advantages. So as I said, so it's inexpensive, light in weight, easy to transport everywhere. The plant can be set up easily onshore or offshore, low maintenance cost. In terms of small scale, it's now very competitive, very mature, environment friendly. We preserve obviously the exploitation of over-exploitation of our groundwater, and also it can alleviate the pressure from the dams in some countries that depend on. These advantages also, I can highlight here the relatively large land areas requirements. We need to scale it up, and it's low efficiency. So if we look about, we are talking about big desalination plant, 100,000 cubic meters per day, for example, it's an issue when it comes to using, for example, PV. We need to cover large areas. In terms of examples, since 2003, 2008, we had so many pilot and projects in the region funded by different European projects. For example, in this case, ADIRA project, which has developed autonomous desalination units in Morocco, in Tunisia. We were producing a few amounts of water for small villages, for remote areas. It showed to be very successful. The cost at that time was a little bit still expensive, but we can do the same project with much less cost. We have another example from Tunisia in the Qasr al-Ghilan. I was in Mahdia, for example. They are using solar desalination for agriculture. So there are many interesting examples at low scale. In Spain, also we have examples of wind RO, so interesting pilot and project in Canarias and in Baleares. In Algeria also we have interesting also project PVRO or nanofiltration, where also we have interesting costs to be considered. In Egypt, I can give you an example. The case study, there was a case study that was published recently in the International Journal of Economics and Management Sciences, which said that in Egypt, a conceptual PVRO plant could produce water at a cost of $1.2 per cubic meter. So very, very competitive. And when it's compared with a variable cost of 1.1 to 1.5 for a conventional diesel power plant, obviously this become really interesting. And obviously Egypt, as you know, now is investing a lot in desalination project, and we have many projects in the pipeline, either on the Red Sea or the Mediterranean Sea shores. Finally, I will end up by recommendations. So Alan mentioned at the beginning that this webinar comes in the context of the regional study about a regional observatory on no conventional water resources, desalination and reuse, proposed by World Water Council, and the Mediterranean Institute for Water is executing the project. Obviously, this kind of observatory would be of added value for the region to provide them with the best practices, the best available technologies in desalination and reuse, in particular using the best options of renewable energy. I know that there is a lot of needs in the region. We have more and more needs in terms of desalination and reuse, and definitely such observatory could be, a great added value. We need to encourage collaborative and focused applied R&D innovation, in particular on the nexus, through research teams, community of practices, alliances. I know that there are some interesting calls now with Prima and the Horizon 2020 project, and this is that would help in this area. Also, we need an effort in scaling up technologies, replicate, and fund ongoing projects related to the nexus, including integrated seawater energy and agriculture system, renewable energy for wastewater treatment and reuse, and solar desalination. We have so many interesting projects using greenhouses, using brackish water desalination to produce food. A very interesting project around the Mediterranean. Also, we need to build capacity for policymakers and also institutionalize regional knowledge management system to share the best practices on the nexus, accelerate the energy transition, and increase the share of renewable energy in the water sector, desalination and reuse. And finally, renewable energy power desalination is more than an opportunity. It is a necessity now, but we need more innovation, more investment, more involvement of private sector, PPPs and other financial mechanisms, and also more international collaboration, hopefully with different regional projects to ensure both water and energy security. I will be happy to respond to any question, whether in English or French. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, dear Jauad, for this beautiful panorama of different examples around the Mediterranean. So there is some questions in the chat. So perhaps we have time to answer to the two first. You could have to answer on the chat. The first one is from Selmir Borak. For him, the key issue of water challenge in Mediterranean is energy. For me, it's also water resource. I think it's both of them at the same level. What is your opinion, Jauad?
Sorry, I didn't get your question. If you could repeat, please, the question.
Yes, Selber Burak thinks that the key issue for water challenge in Mediterranean is energy. What is your opinion?
Well, I mean, it depends. It depends on different. I mean, obviously, the expectation or the scenarios now, we are going to have more and more desalination plants, obviously. So we will need more energy. Resources in terms of national ambitions. All the Mediterranean countries, in particular Arab countries, have very ambitious targets. For example, in Morocco, we are talking about 52% of renewable energy in the share of energy mix by 2030. We have very similar, targets in Egypt, in Tunisia. So I think, the energy, is not the issue, but I think definitely that's why we are talking about the nexus here. We need more. Adopting the next approach in a concrete way, in a particular way. We are talking about a lot about the nexus in conferences, in forums. But finally, last year, for example, when Prima Foundation launched the award of Nexus project, there were very few actually nexus projects. So I think we need to encourage and boost such project where we can show the importance of considering both energy and water at the same time, and so we can also provide energy resources for the new water projects that are coming in the upcoming years.
Yes, agree with you. We need an integrated approach, including all aspects, not only one aspect. So another question for our colleague Moez Alawi. Have you an idea about the cost in Agadir desalination plant of 1 cubic meter, and what is the applied price for the local farmers? Have you an idea about that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very interesting question. Actually, when I was in Medrec in the past, we tried to develop a sort of international standard to evaluate the cost of desalination. And in general, private sector don't want. They don't like to share the price, obviously, to the public. Obviously, this is depends on the different tenders. That's why I think the observatory that we are trying to promote through the IME. One, I think, of the rules that could the observatory play in this area is to work on how we can assess or develop a sort of international standard that could be used by either governments or private sector. So, for example, for the governments, they can assess if, for example, there is a need of desalination plant somewhere, they can know more or less what price they need to tender. And at the same time, for the private sector side, they can see if they are competitive enough in their offer or not. I know that private sector, a lot of them, they have their own models, but I think a standardized model would be very interesting. But again, to come back to the question of my friend Muaz, I don't really sincerely have a response on the price exactly. It should be around 0.8 or 1.2. But I would ask some friends in Agadir, and they will come back to you to give you, the response. But right now, I don't have really the response.
Thank you, Jauad, for your answer. I think we are going to switch to the other presentation. So please, there is other questions about the cost on the chat. So if you can give some answer, please, to our attendees. So we are going to switch to the second presentation. Donc pour la deuxième présentation, il nous semblait important d'avoir une vision stratégique, une vision d'État, de voir comment sur ce domaine-là des énergies renouvelables, les programmes étaient bâtis, étaient décidés. Donc, c'est dans ce cadre qu'on est très content de recevoir Madame Fatima Amdouche, qui est directrice du pôle stratégique du pilotage du Mazen au Maroc. Le Mazen, c'est l'agence marocaine pour les énergies durables. C'est une agence qu'elle a intégrée depuis 8 ans, où elle contribue à la définition stratégique et à la définition en objectifs et en plan stratégique. Donc, elle pilote un certain nombre de projets dans ce domaine. Elle a une expérience aussi internationale en France et au Canada. Donc, elle va nous présenter un peu la vision du Maroc, d'un État sur ce point de vue des énergies renouvelables, et aussi avec un focus sur quelques exemples spécifiques du Maroc. Donc, merci encore, Fatima, de votre présence, et vous avez la parole pour une quinzaine de minutes.
Très bien, merci à vous pour l'invitation et pour cette opportunité d'échanger.
You have the floor for the 15 next minutes. Thank you very much for inviting us to take part in the development of our country, and in order to give a perspective that is the one of Morocco, I'd like to give you first of all an idea about what is going on in Morocco. Morocco today is highly exposed to water stress, especially with the climate change factors, and if no drastic measures are taken, by 2014, Morocco will have consumed more than 80% of its available conventional water resources. If you could share, please, your presentation, Mrs. Fatima, it just disappeared. And I'll share my presentation again. Here you go, if you can put it on full screen. So I was saying that we are facing a risk that 80% of our water resources would be consumed by 2014, knowing that Morocco knew these 2 late years problems with water resources. So it is clear that the implementation of policies of water resource development policies that are related to new sustainable supply sources and transitioning toward these new resources are of the utmost importance and should be accelerated. actions should be taken in order to shift toward non-conventional water resources and how we can use them. On the other hand, Morocco has an important potential of growing energy, of renewable energies. So we know that according to different regions, we have wind energy, solar, hydraulic, or a combination of both or three of these energies. So Morocco is blessed within an important renewable energy potential, knowing that in a couple of years, as Mr. Kherraz has mentioned, more than 50% of our electricity should be from renewable energies. And according to different regions, I'd like to say that the regions which are most exposed to water stress should be focusing on developing their renewable energy potential. On a much more international level, the energy security and the water security is a growing need in different countries. There are important synergies between water access and sustainable management, as well as a clean and affordable energy. No, as you all know, water and energy are fundamentally intertwined. On the one hand, we do use energy throughout all the water cycle to secure the water, deliver, treat, and distribute it, while water is used to develop, process, and deliver energy. So there is a very intertwined, linked relationship between energy and water. These opportunities of synergies and the combination of these two within a mobilization of these non-conventional water resources is important, and the use of renewable energies in the water cycle would allow to benefit from the price of renewable energy, knowing that in Morocco, renewable energy cost is rather a competitor price that will allow also decrease the carbon footprint. And this is one of the objectives that we have in order to answer in a sustainable way our needs in terms of energy. This is just to recall and remind you that for more than a century, water resource mobilization have been of a national priority. These are royal initiatives started with His Majesty the late King Hassan II, who accelerated this trend starting in the 60s with the big dam policy that not only addressed water preservation, but also represented the starting point for the development of renewable energy projects in the kingdom. Today, a vision that is pursued and accelerated under the reign of His Majesty the King Mohammed VI. So this is a double vision that was established in order to answer the needs of energy in the country and in Morocco by the establishment of an energy strategy based on different components. So these different visions were reconfirmed and again within the new Morocco development model that represents some strategic subject that we can find within this model. Just for your information, in this report, it is clearly stated that the needs in terms of water should be met unless or thanks to the use of the non-conventional water resources, and it would be necessary to preserve the water resources through a management or a more rigorous management of water and of its scarcity, reinforcing the importance of water preservation and its nexus with energy. These are elements that we have mentioned or highlighted in the new model. For example, safeguard water resources through better use of the resource and more rigorous management, or the promotion of use of renewable energies for seawater desalination. The objective here in the new development model is to make Morocco a leader in the low carbon energy and make the energy offer as a major driver for the economic attractiveness of Morocco, with a competitive energy sourced essentially from renewables and a less significant dependence on fuels, but also to attract more use of the renewable energies at the national level. So here are a couple of examples of initiatives and projects that are either ongoing or already developed, which help align the water energy and the energy water nexus. So for example, we have some interconnecting dams project that helps interconnect dams over long distances. Of course, other project of water desalination, seawater desalination, in order to answer the needs of in terms of drinking water and water for agriculture. We're also highlighting the renewables powered water desalinations in some plants. Some other studies are conducted in order to see the possibility of having a floating solar panels on dams. It is an ongoing study on the opportunity to install these floating solar PV panels to reduce water evaporation in dams while producing solar energy. We also have some other ongoing projects to value the thermal drying of sludge, or another project that is related to biogas production and water treatment plants. So these were the ambition of Morocco, and I'll give you some insight on Mazen. I don't know if you already know Mazen, but Mazen is about the development of renewable energy, since it is a national priority and a national ambition in order to mitigate the climate change and participate to the social economic development of the country. We are today reaching almost 28% of our water used in solar. Mazen was the Moroccan Energy for Solar Agency for Solar Energy, with an objective to implement the solar plan, Moroccan solar plan. And therefore, since 2015, we have also reached out all the renewable energy sector, and we are the Moroccan Agency for Sustainable Energy, and Mazen has the objective to develop, from the days of publication of the law, the production of electricity, but not only, with a minimum additional capacity of 3,000 megawatt by 2020 and 6,000 megawatt by 2030, within the frame of an agreement concluded with the state. And there this since 2016. So our key mission is to develop this production of electricity, and we do contribute on all the chain value from the programmation of the project to the qualification of the resources. We're acting along. We're also involved in site qualification, technical design, financing the development of the project, the operations, and then the maintenance of our project. So we have teams who are dedicated on working and acting along the whole value chain in order to make the renewable energies project a success, especially the project in the north of Ouarzazate. We have also contributed to some other accesses of development, for example, the IME production, for example, applied REN production, subjects that are related to renewable. We do contribute to the development, to the applied R&D, research and development, to the industrial integration, and we do launch call for tenders and make sure that we are making the whole ecosystem benefit from our project. We also tackle the training component because we contribute to different institution and organization of training in Morocco. And finally, we do work on a local level to make sure that our project have an impact on the field and that we are contributing to the development of the region on a social economic level, engaging local actors through different initiatives at the level of our training, for example, education, health sector, and well-being of the region. So these are the characteristics of Mazen, and we have also opened our scope to more than electrical. We are working on the REN production, for example, on the form of heat, cooling, some sectors trying to contribute to water treatment also. And this law has helped us to act on a wider geographical zone. We do contribute to our national objectives, but also we do contribute at an international and continental scale. These are a couple of words on Mazen, and these are our achievements, some of our achievements that try to give you a overview of the renewables in Morocco. We are at almost 4,000 megawatt of REN project in operation, either on solar projects through, for example, our plant in Ouarzazate, but not only. We're also in having project in Bushtour, Layun, north of Noor Tafilalt. In addition to that, we are focusing on wind project with more than 1,400 megawatts in operation in different areas and zones, regions of Morocco. We have developed some of our project thanks to the law I already mentioned in the previous slide, and we're contributing to the different projects. So these are some of our missions and achievements, and we are not only in the energy sector, but also in the water sector. We have worked on trying to make our water consumption as optimum as possible, and this was one of our biggest concerns within the plant Noor Ouarzazate. Therefore, we tried to develop some technological solutions in order to transition from wet to dry cooling technologies. in Noor was as a plant. So it was a wet to dry cooling technology that we have installed in our plants in that. So this is one of our ongoing project. One other field effect intervention of Mazen is a solution that answers the needs at the level of energy, water, and in some regions of Morocco, especially in a fishing village. It is a Moroccan subsidiary of Mazen that has developed a multi-production solution that valorizes REN potential to produce electricity, heat, and cooling desalinated water for the benefit of this fishing village. Now, concerning research and development project, we do contribute to different initiatives. I mentioned some of them. We're very active in a project 2020, Horizon 2020, in order to develop an integrated and innovative solution intended to optimize water management in our plants. We are also contributing to other initiatives. For example, we try to achieve a significant reduction in water consumption in cooling systems of the turbine patch and cleaning of the optical surfaces of a solar field. Of course, I'll be very happy to answer all of your questions and contribute to the feasibility study you mentioned earlier. But today we're very highly convinced that within Mazen, we need to adhere renewables to the water cycle in order for the countries to be able to face their challenges and use our expertise that we've gained through working with the renewables and water treatment in order to answer the regional and continental challenges, since we are willing to share and develop our project at the level of the continent. Thank you very much, Fatima, for your beautiful presentation and a very ambitious project of Mazen that are presented in a very realistic vision, and we have the feeling that you are going to succeed. Thank you very much for your presentation. We have two questions on the chat box, and later on you can answer the questions on the chat box. So the first question is of, are you clear about the Moroccan presentation and regional differences between the north and the south? In the south, there is no access to energy and no access to water sometimes. So what is your specific vision about access to water in the south? And Mrs. Elena has also mentioned the measures that are taken in the development of the infrastructure with big projects that might have environmental impact. So how can you have this vision of impact and vision of difference in regions to what Mazen is doing? The question of regions is very determined. We are addressing our national objectives, and we have the chance in Morocco to have a electricity grid that covers the range of our country, and the need here in Morocco are identified and categorized into regions, and we do develop our strategy based on these needs. The project that we develop today are integrated and linked to the grid, to the network of electricity in Morocco, in order to address the particular needs of different regions. So we are very lucky to to have this electricity network to be able to transport it from where it is produced to where the needs is. And within the framework of our program, NOR PV panels, we have taken into consideration the needs, but not only. We've also taken into consideration the potential, which is very important in our region. And one of the first projects that was developed in Morocco were developed in the southern regions of Morocco, such as Laayoune and Bujdur, and this will help the development, the social economic development of the region. Now addressing the second question, the use is fundamental. As I said earlier, we are present on the whole value chain, and we do qualify our sites by excluding the areas where they could be used for other purposes, for example, agriculture. So we are lucky to have enough surface in comparison with some other countries which has this challenge of surface. So we do work on our project, as I said earlier, excluding the areas where other projects could be developed, such as an agriculture project. These areas are excluded. Thank you very much, Ms. Fatima. The debate will continue, and if you have any questions addressed to you on the chat box, you could address them. Thank you very much, and we'll continue our journey to the Mediterranean area as we do.
The next presentation will be done by Marios Georgiou. Marios Georgiou is the head of the Proteas Facility Operation of the Energy, Environment and Water Research Center at the Cyprus Institute. He is a specialist of desalination, thermal desalination, coupled with concentrated solar power. So he will give us a presentation about Cyprus examples. So the floor is yours, dear Marios.
Bonjour, merci pour l'invitation. That's all the French that I use. I'll switch to English to give a better presentation. So once again, thank you for the invitation, and thanks to the colleagues that have already presented some really nice results and some really nice projects. And from my side, I will also be presenting our show case study, which is basically the Proteas facility that is a solar research facility in Cyprus. And bearing in mind the situation with the electricity in Cyprus and similar isolated grids, we have been developing projects for the last few years in order to demonstrate how we can use renewable energy sources for producing electricity, but at the same time for hybridization purposes like desalination. So Proteas basically is, first of all, it stands for Platform for Research and Observation of Technological Applications in Solar Energy. This is the largest research infrastructure in the island, and one basically is the flagship infrastructure of the whole institution. It is recognized research infrastructure as it is a part of several EU research networks. It's a state-of-the-art scientific research laboratory, and it demonstrates research and innovation in several aspects. So what we have been doing and what we are doing is we are implementing research, development, testing, and innovation in the fields of concentrated solar power, as you can see in the photo in the background, in the renewable desalination and brine management of seawater. So at this point, I will also mention that in the previous presentation, we talked about desalination, but also brine management is a really important factor that we need to take into consideration if somebody takes into account how the huge volume of brine water that is then disseminated back to the sea. Energy storage, multi-renewable energy solutions, micro grids, off and off-grid renewable schemes, automation and smart controls, hybridization and polygeneration for autonomous system and communities. We're also providing access and training to international researchers and students, and we are in collaboration with industries. We're providing specific services that have to do either with testing of components or with providing reliable data or providing know-how. So giving the background information about what we have been doing in the last 12 years. So back in 2010, we have a concept that was basically to co-generate electricity and desalinate seawater. This was proposed to the government, which funded the concept. And after having the relevant studies in 2012, using some European funds, but also some funds from the Cyprus Institute, we started implementing the Proteas facility. In order to do so, we had to start getting some prototype system and subsystem components tested. And then within a period of 2 years, we have inaugurated the Proteas facility in 2015. For the following 2 years, we have been testing the integration of the whole components. And then by the end of 2019, we demonstrated that the whole CSP-DSW concept, as it was developed specifically for the region, it has been successfully demonstrated. And at this point, taking into consideration the questions in the chat bar, I have to also say that providing a specific technology, it has to do with several parameters, the location, the type of the water. So it's not straightforward which type of technology someone would be using coupled with what. So the original concept basically, well, that stands for CSP-DSW, was to use a concentrated solar facility that uses solar heat from the solar field to store that energy, and from that point on to either go for the power plant which will produce electricity, or use that heat to desalinate seawater, or do a combination of both. So we have been developing thermal desalination methods, and our primary technology was multiple effect distillation with some innovative components. And the concept was that we wanted to demonstrate that depending on the needs of the community, you can either go for electricity, you can go for desalination, or you can go for both. And there are a lot of challenges into the integration of steam plant with the desalination unit. Therefore, this was the challenging part that we wanted to address back in 2010. And this is how the Proteas facility looked like in 2015, where you can see we have a heliostat field with 50 heliostats. We have a tower system where basically we concentrate the solar radiation. On the basement of the tower, we have the thermal storage tank. We are using molten salt for storage. And there we have had the electricity production and desalination, which was back then 1 cubic meter per day. It was a demonstration project just to prove the concept. In parallel, we are also having some meteorological station and getting meteorological data. We are recording values that are really important for us, like DNI. And we have been using photovoltaics as a UPS system for the facility. So getting all the information together, it's Proteas was a standalone self-sufficient experimental platform with using 50 heliostats, 150 kilowatt thermal peak power, molten salt for storage, thermal desalination unit, full automated meteorological station, and integrated PVs. After the successful completion on 2019, we have then decided that we wanted to move from the cogeneration concept into a polygeneration concept, where we will also integrate additional forms of renewable energy sources, and try also to hybridize the outcome. So going from CSP-DSW, we went to the polyres concept, which was basically adding additional renewable energy sources. We used to have the central tower receiver, then we added 2 Stirling dishes, we added additional photovoltaics, and we also added wind turbine in order to have a complex of production of electricity and heat from the several components, which is then stored into molten salt thermal storage and batteries. And from that point on, we have the flexibility and the capacity to use this amount of energy either for electricity production or for desalination or any other process heat that we might want to use. Additionally, the initial technological concept, as described, using heliostat mirrors for concentrating and then using this heat for electricity and desalination of seawater, was also modified into a more complex technological concept, which we have been also utilizing the excess heat from several components. So we have been also using hot air for recovering the heat from our receiver. We have been also adding a second desalination process that is called forward osmosis in order to be able to get better recovery ratio, which basically recovery ratio stands for how much distilled water is produced per seawater. So the idea is that we want to also tackle the brine management issue, and we want to go as close as we can to the zero liquid discharge, having to being able to actually treat the whole brine within the facility without leaving any environmental impact back into the sea. So adding all the additional components, the Proteas facility was transformed basically into a polygeneration scheme where we added some additional heliostats for additional heat power. We had hybrid storage using molten salt and batteries. We had thermal desalination, and also we have forward osmosis for desalination and from brine management. We are one of the BSRN stations, which is basically one of the accredited stations that provide data to the World Meteorological Organization, reliable data for meteorological conditions and solar radiation. We have the wind turbine and also the automated weather station that belongs to the National Meteo Services. So this is how actually the Proteas facility is currently. I mean, we have integrated all the energy sources into the Proteas microgrid, where, as you can see, we have 35 kilowatts of photovoltaics, 10 kilowatt of wind turbine, 20 kilowatt of solar Starlink dishes, and we have 210 kilowatt of thermal from the CSP plant. These different components have different type of outputs, either have electricity, some other have heat, some have both, which they are then integrated into the multi-storage system. And for the multi-storage system, we then go to the polygeneration scheme. So what we do, we basically produce electricity with desalinated seawater, and at the same time we have storage of heat that can be used for a various of purposes. And moving to the 2015 Proteas facility, this is the 2021 facility as it is currently right now. It's 2022 actually. So this is how the facility has been upgraded and integrated in the last few years. And this new site with the new components give us a huge flexibility in terms of innovation, in terms of research, as a research institute, but also in terms of research in collaboration with the industries, because some of the components that we do have in the facility are either the prototypes of commercial industries or are components that are in the market and the industries wanted actually to test it in real conditions to our facility. The facility is located next to the sea, it's about 100 meters. So we are facing lots of issues, challenges like corrosion. And at the same time, we are doing desalination using real seawater, which is really two of the major advantages and disadvantages that industries are seeking for. And looking at an aerial view of the facility right now, this is how it looks like. And I'll just finish with a short video that basically it's a drone flying above the facility just to get an idea of how the facility looks like. So thanks for your attention, and please wait a minute for the video to play and enjoy the video for the few following seconds. So that's how the facility looks like. It's located next to the actual biggest power plant of the island, and it may happen by accident a few years ago that we're located next to them, but now it's a privilege that we can demonstrate how we can actually produce electricity, store energy, and also desalinate seawater using all the renewable energy sources that we have implemented into this fantastic area. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Marius, for the presentation. Perhaps one question we have, have you tested other type of hybridation, including biomass, or have you some project to test other hybridation? It's the first question, and I have a second one for me. There is a lot of study around the world now about solar membrane distillation. Have you some project about that with ceramic membrane?
So first of all, about the biomass, it's something that's within our future plans. I mean, the whole idea and the whole philosophy is that first of all, we don't want to exclude any type of renewable generation process. And given that we have been already requested to do some research and a pilot using biomass, it's something that it will be integrated in the next few months in the facility. Therefore, it's something that we have been looking into, and it's something that we will proceed in the following few months. Now, going to the question about the membrane distillation or the different type of membranes for distillation. I mean, is it clearly about membrane or different type of membranes?
Yes, it is a different type of membrane, and notably ceramic membranes.
Okay. I could go to both questions. So, I mean, even though our primary research goes to thermal processes, and we have been using plate heat exchangers as heat exchangers and not membranes, we are doing research on membranes with a specific company, an industry from the US. We have been looking basically in polymeric heat exchangers and membranes that are quite innovative. I'm sorry I cannot share too much information about their membranes, but the know-how about the ceramic is something that personally I don't know, because our background is mainly on the ones that we test with the industry, and our heat exchangers are mainly plate heat exchangers or polymeric heat exchangers. And lastly, because I referred also to membrane distillation, which is with the forward osmosis, a really promising technology, which is right now emerging. And I saw in the previous presentations some names and some prototypes. As mentioned already, I mean, we need to scale up these promising technologies, because their prototypes are showing that the thermal and the electricity demands of new emerging technologies are really lower compared to the previous ones. And now I think it's a good momentum to scale up and try to demonstrate these technologies as well with innovative components, maybe even the membranes that you have been referring to.
And thank you so much. You have other questions about the cost, about the comparative cost between different technologies, but also about the place of your plant seems to be far from activities area. So if you have some storage, or how to manage the distance.
Okay, you want me to get to them right now?
Yes, no, I think you can give the answer directly on the chat, because we have to switch to the other presentation. So because we are a little bit late.
Yeah,
so thank you so much, Marius. See you. Merci, et nous allons passer donc, nous allons continuer notre voyage.
Thank you very much, and we'll continue our journey and reach the second or the third presentation by Mr. Xavier Juan, who's head of the Development Africa, a desalination company called, and he's working on the PV panels. He'll present about the developments they have in Africa. Xavier, you have 15 minutes to present, and I'll try to respect the time. The floor is yours, Xavier. I'll try to be very quick in order to not be very late on the schedule. First,
I'm amazed with what you have done in it's pretty amazing, all the type of technology you use, and pretty impressive technology. Peut-être pour revenir sur Tissilio, alors nous on n'est pas dans des technologies aussi.
We're not in such technologies and techniques. Can you put your screen on full mode? Thank you. Yes, perfect. So our vision is to keep it simple. Since we're in Africa, we're on a very simple technologies, as mentioned by Mr. Roche. Thank you for your invitation, first of all. And in Sicilio, we're experts in energy in general, not only in water. We do work on the PV, photovoltaic panels. We only work on the photovoltaic panels producing electricity, and the idea here is to have advantages, especially on the environmental level, economic level. We're working on different areas in Africa. We're working in the south, in the Sahel, and there is a reason to use the solar energy because it's less expensive. And on a social level, we are trying to have electricity everywhere. So what we are doing in Sicilio is that we're developing 20 project in Africa. We're developing ACE project in Mali, Togo, Djibouti, and some other ongoing project in these countries. We are working on the West Africa, and in East Africa, we already established some project. We are present in Mali, in Niger, some region where access is very challenging security-wise. The kind of clients we have are the clients we call industries, and this is why we are present. We are working with clients who are able to produce water, produce agribusiness, and water is one of the sectors that we are dealing with lately in Africa, but also in France. We worked in very critical areas with the different peace order. We work with the GIZ, the German Development Institution, and we do work with some development institutions. Regarding the value chain, we do work on the development of all the project to have all the authorization. We have a study office. We do achieve with local partners our projects. Our vision is not to send an army of European people to achieve our project. We do work with locals, and we transfer our competencies and skills to the locals, and they help us maintain the centrals and the plants in order for the solar plants to keep going for 20 years. So what we suggest, as I already mentioned, we're working on consultancy. We do also work on the delivery or ready project. We have, for example, here, as you can see on the screen, the purification of water in France, Chateau Renard, and we've worked on that surface in order to maximize the use of the available surface around the step in order to do an auto production. All the energy produced by this plant is used in this step. So can we add a storage of energy? Can we, for example, add a power station to that area without storing energy? So we worked with this step in Chateau Renard and helped us reach out to other steps. So this is the repartition you can see on this screen is very linked to the need of our clients. because the surface represented a challenge, and because the zone was a subject to floods, we needed to put our panels on some very specific surfaces in order to avoid this floods. And we tried to create a tailor-made solution. We also create standardized solutions, for example, a system that is called TSS, the solar station Ticilio. We're going to send this solar station to Senegal to help and develop a plant. We'll be pumping water thanks to the sun with a system to regulate the frequencies in order to make the turbine works based on the solar. We don't need batteries. We won't need any sun storing. We will be storing water during the day in order to store it in a basin and reuse it when the customers will need it. So the idea here is not to store energy because it's the most expensive component of the solution. The battery is the most expensive part of the solution, not the photovoltaic panels at the moment. So because we don't need to store any energy anymore, we are doing some economy in this regard. So the La Ticelio solar station is a modulable solution. We can add, for example, panels next to each other in order, for example, to reach in Senegal 2030. On this table, we have 6 modules, and we can use the surface of our client, since we have very small units of 6 meter 80, 4 meter in length, and we don't need a very large surface to implement our panels. We have a very specific system that we developed, and we have developed this bastion wall that you can see on the pictures in some camps, for example, to avoid any bullets touching our panels and being able to reuse these walls somewhere else. So these walls are retaining wind also. This is the philosophy of Ticilio. We're not trying to do a lot because we have some other competitors that develop tailor-made solutions, which are beautiful, easy to implement, but we are working on very difficult plans. For example, we need 3 or 4 days to implement our solar panels, but it's not a Ferrari, it's rather a Land Rover that would help us, of course, be more sustainable and develop some 77 kilowatt. How do we work? If you are a client and you need some something to do with your water use, if, for example, you have a diesel generator, we'll do a intelligent or a smart controller that we will discuss with different actors. We'll measure the needs and the demand, and based on that, we'll regulate the solar power, whether we'll put it on a container or on the roof of a container, and the possibilities to add storage. And this is the most expensive part of the project. So what we can do It's like playing Legos. You can try to start with one TSS, one solar, and see how it is functioning, how is the demand, what time the demand is higher, and behind we have a plant, and then we add storage, because you already know how many power cuts in a year you have, how long the power cut is, and we develop our solutions. We start with small project, and later we can add phases to the project, like what happened in Mario project to make it more complex. So this is our approach. We start step by step in order to make sure everything is working. And the project I already mentioned is an example. Château Renard is an example of 249 kilowatt of solar panels on the ground, and the four connections is, or the inverter is connected to the network in France, but has no possibility to inject. So the controller is able to regulate the production from the PVs and not inject them. The reason behind the controller is to monitor the demand. Knowing the demand help us know our power station, know how many PVs will add, and having the exact percentage of economy and giving you the exact solution. And this is key to the optimization of the station. And this is very important. There, for example, in France, this is not happening, or this is available, but not in Africa. So we are trying in Africa to start small, and after 6 or 12 months, we'll increase the PVs and we'll make sure everything is working as you please. So the most important part of it is that solar is a very competitive energy, whether it's on a very big power station with less than $2, or on very small power station in Africa, for example. We are present and we are less expensive than the network. It is sustainable. When we talk about solar, it is sustainable, it is renewable, and it is independent. We can really help you be independent from power cuts, especially when we are working on pumping from the sun, and get rid of the diesel generator. These are the advantages of Celio presence, and we have a subsidiary in Mali and in Senegal. We're almost opening in Madagascar and in Togo. So we have different subsidies in different countries, so that we can be very near from our customers. And our strategy is the following: very simple but very sustainable. I know that some of the projects were developed in Africa, not very or recently, and they're not working and be independent, of course. I don't know if you have questions on these projects. I have some other slides on other projects, and I hope that I haven't exceeded the 15-minute. Thank you very much, Xavier. It was very interesting showing these beautiful projects and how sustainable your work is. We have a question on the chat about the cost of capex and opex per kilowatt, and we also have another question about the different climate conditions, for example, fog. When we talk about, or when we start to study a project, we do a PVC simulation app software. We worked on very big project of thousands of megawatts, and this is a tool that helps you predict how much energy you produce anywhere in the world. These are databases existing for more than 30 years, and database and data from NASA and similar entities. So we, thanks to this software, we can know how many production you can have in this particular spot in this particular country. The results are very credible and they are sometimes underestimated. But if you have a project, and I'm in Africa more than Amazonia, for example, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, you have um, the the equatorial region, and this is not the same production in terms of solar as in Bamako, for example. It's 40 to 50% less. So these kind of conditions are taken into consideration while developing our solutions. We know already how much we'll produce, and we do work on that for fog, for example, or in case of clouds, will have a big variability, a change from a day to another, not over the year, but over the days. And we'll take this component into consideration in our dimension of development of the solution, and we'll give the appropriate solution for our customer. Thank you very much, Xavier. Thank you. And I say it again, it's not because it is easy, the solution is not efficient. When it's easy, it's a lot of work behind it. And I know that there are different collaboration aspects that can be developed here. Thank you very much. And
we will then continue with the energy with Tergis, which is a French startup which was founded about 5 or 6 years ago with a former director of research and development of the Veolia compound, and who started the startup. He works a lot on the water cycle, on the optimization of water treatment and coupling with the renewable energies. Presentation will be made by the commercial development officer of Tergis France, who has also had a very interesting career with Evolia as in the field of research and also at the operational department. Ludovic, you also have 15 minutes to talk to us about Gergis, which is a startup, particularly the main achievements. Thank you, Pascal. I hope you can see my screen, or they can put it on full screen model. Well, thank you very much for the entire team, for the IME organization team, for having accepted us and invited us to take part of this webinar. Yes. So Tergis is a young company. There are just 6 of us. It's a very small startup or small SME. We develop solutions, tailor-made solutions, turnkey solutions for water treatment throughout the various water cycles. So we have water expertise, but also when it comes to the associated energy production using mainly the renewable energies, mainly solar and wind, we have a second pillar of expertise within our company. So 2 axes. We sell then turnkey solutions. We also practice we make what we call expertise studies for industrial clients, and also on request we just finished one for OCP, which is a very big company working in the mining products and leaders of products for the seeds in Morocco. I will try to be a little bit faster. So some background, of course, I think the 2 previous presentations have already talked about the water challenges. We talk about the conventional water resources, non-conventional water resources, which can be reused by human activities, by irrigation or agriculture, and also by the animals. Of course, we need to know that only 2.8% of water quantities on Earth is fresh, and out of these 2.8%, only 0.65% is fresh and usable water. And which is with the climate events and with the climate change that we see that continue, we can say that preserving fresh water, unfortunately, will definitely be reduced with water dilution and, of course, with the melting of ice. So water usages, water needs, 70% of water needs go to agriculture, with mainly the irrigation, of course, and some cattle breeding, 20% for industry, 8% for domestic activities. These are figures which, of course, which have been probably the same over time. So we see water needs, and we need to look at what we can do in order to optimize, to make the best of water usages, water resources in different countries. So I can tell you very quickly about what you call the print or the environment print. Now, the challenges or the stakes of the for now, which are provoked by change, climate change and demographic pressure. And here I see a map of demographic pressure, where we can see Asia, Africa, the association of these two elements. So the what we call the demographic pressure and the need to use water and to use conventional resources, and which means in many regions, unfortunately, we know what we call hydra stress, water stress. And when in the absence of enough water to be able to conduct different activities, be them agriculture and industrial, or the water supply to the population, there are conflicts of interest. Conflict of interest could be local, could be regional, and also international. And so there are topics, we know conflicts when it comes to the management of the northeastern, particularly northeast of Africa, of course. Here, what we see, it's a map that shows the different problems related to water stress. All continents are concerned by water stress issues. And you can see when it comes to the Mediterranean basin, it is also not spared when it comes to the water stress. Now, water treatment is also very much connected to energy consumption, and it will give you some electricity consumption ratio, but only when it comes to the treatment and transportation of water. And I think Jauad showed the Anglo-Saxon systems. Now, when it comes to drinking water, does not really require a lot of energy, only 0.05 to 0.05 kilowatt per cubic meter, a little bit more when it comes to the sanitation, but nothing to do with the energy required for desalination of water in order to remove, of course, salt and to concentrate water. So concentration for desalination or consumption for desalination is extremely important. Jauad told us that the principle of reverse osmosis eats up about 70 or 75% of new installations. And we can say that for about 10 years now, we see that the energy consumption must be managed to the best way possible when it comes to the carbon print. In the 80s, in the 90s, and the beginning of the years 2000, all power plants used to operate with gas, with oil, with petrol, with raw material which are perishable. But now, more and more in this new decade of 2020, even mega projects, big projects of desalination in the Gulf, now they try to use solar fields, mainly photovoltaic, in order to provide energy to those installations for two main reasons. One, the Middle East, as you know, which is which has a lot of sun, a lot of solar radiation, of course. And second, there is a very important increase or improvement when it comes to the cost of PV panels, which means now we can use more and more solar energy for desalination. The press, of course, covers all these changes. Sometimes a photo is much better than 1,000 words, as we can see here. We can see that when we are shown photos of dried up dams or dried up lakes, or that the water or that the sea probably lost about 70% of their capacities, like the Dead Sea or the closed sea, we can see that the water resources are decreasing, and we absolutely have to take care of. Let me now tell you a little bit more about what we call the decentralized autonomous systems provided by TERGIS, offered by TERGIS. What are the needs? So we have four. So there are four sectors when it comes to the needs. First, drinking water, using conventional sources, contaminated, not non-contaminated. We also have the desalination of water, sea water or brackish water in the underground surfaces, which we also work there. We also focus on, we also have clients who ask us to work on irrigation and the irrigation processes in the agriculture field, and also for the industry. And there is a very strong trend that we have been observing, particularly in Europe. It's the acceleration of the need for recycling using wastewater that is generated by public municipal infrastructure or industrial wastewater. So more and more recycling, a request for recycling. So all water treatment systems, they are sized and operated thanks or based on renewable energies as much as possible. We use to the best extent systems that are based on solar PV panels, and also when there is enough wind, then which is very often the case along the coast or in islands or where we have great wind, or in mountainous areas. We try to channel as much as possible the wind trends and the wind flows through wind farms. We also use sometimes also what we call the movement of the waves, or bio waste or biomass. So we can also work on these two options as well, which are not. So we still do not have good references in these options, but we are still working with our partners in order to develop the production of energy using then dynamic systems, so like the movement of waves, but also uh, uh, for some reasonable capacities, of course. But we also have worked on projects for prisons, for resorts, for neighborhood, for some neighborhoods, and the use of bio waste can help us to produce biogas or to produce energy or electricity. And if we have heat flows, for example, we can make use of the heart or the DNA of Tergis, our company, is to have developed algorithm systems and for the regulation and the smart steering of the energy part to supply water treatment, water processing. So we work at the level of we work on battery storage. So we can, upon request, of course, we can suggest, of course, tailoring or tailor making or producing those batteries, but we also work on the storage and the management and the use of energy, depending on the different requests pertaining to water treatment. But also we try to produce electricity with those, because we noticed based on our discussions with our clients that in addition to water treatment, there is also a need to produce energy. So energy needs as such can also be procured by oversizing appropriately the installation with compared or with regard to the needs of our clients. How do we operate when we have a project? And I think that was evoked uh, by Xavier. Of course, there are databases, open source databases throughout the world. So we have access to those open source databases. These are they give us information, of course, about the solar radiation in various parts of the world, but also when it comes to the wind reservoirs, as we call them, we use those data to make simulations on how to produce water and how to produce energy. So we increment or we implement different production capacities, then using different PV and wind farm capacities and the different battery capacity, battery storage capacities and water storage capacities to help us validate and optimize a CapEx and BioPEX scheme. That's the goal. So these type of tools to size and to calculate and to measure, of course, how much we can produce, we can respond to the needs of the clients and to be able to suggest the best possible production in terms of net debit, the storage, and the production of green energy, be it solar or PV, or in terms of wind energy, using, of course, wind farms. So which applications, when it comes to the production of drinking water and the energy supply, we target first areas with no infrastructure, like remote areas, like suburban areas. Xavier talked about Africa, but also there are many suburban areas in Africa that simply lack infrastructure. That's not necessarily the case in the suburban areas in Europe. They still have good infrastructure, but even in um, suburban areas in cities in Africa, there is not always access to energy. There is not always access to water. So I think it's really suitable to suggest these type of decentralized solutions. Of course, we need to have a water resource with a conventional and conventional. If there is no water, of course, how can we need to bring it from far away. The big projects, big infrastructure projects are also interesting. Rural areas that are for they also constitute for us like target clients, if you want, or target audience, and we can respond to their needs. You see here a photo of a wind on the right side, bottom right of the photo. We have here a very robust wind tower, and that we implemented in one of our sites in Bordeaux in order to work on hybridization. Other applications that can also be used, and here in the field of agriculture, we found out that the agriculture, in addition to their water needs, then using conventional water resources, they can have other needs where PV energy and thermal energy can play a big role in their production in agriculture. And we worked with a company based in Bordeaux for the implementation of PV of thermal and PV panels, which are different from for just the photovoltaic panels. There is an open flow on the PV part, and this type of system helps us to increase the temperature of the ambient air, and this temperature can help us to dry out some crops. So, for example, here this is a project in Burkina Faso with the water production of 5 cubic meter per hour for the needs in the area. It was mainly to provide drinking water to the village. And when it comes to agriculture, we worked on drying up rice with batch systems on to dry up 2.5 tons of rice per batch. Because the drying period depends on air temperature, on rainfall, etc. So this is something that may be interesting to dry up seeds or crops, and depending on some, of course, some food crops. So, for example, for a crop with 300, of course, euros per ton, this could be very interesting. This is this gives you an idea of the panel that we're suggesting in Burkina Faso. This is a concrete example that we implemented in Total, TOTAL, which produces energy, of course, and on the Lac site in the Landre in France. Their idea was to replace, to substitute to drinking water, salty water, and to recover rainwater in this industrial area. So we suggested treatment of water treatment using the reverse osmosis in order to produce demineralized water that is compatible with the standards that they need in their industrial resort. So here we reduced water print, and here you have a photo of the container that was installed on site. And now we are working on the setting up of the system, and that will be, so this is an industrial, an industry that wanted to replace an alternative, want to replace, and of course the conventional resource, the non-conventional resource. Here we have a composting system, which is based in Gironde. In this composting platform case, the farmer or the operator of this platform in his process and his operation mode washes his trucks, and uses, of course, drinking water, and we thought about using other applications to use. We have other percolations on the platform that can come from the composting processing unit, which is loaded particularly with organic material to mix them with rainwater, and we could suggest a substitution solution. You can see the photo of the installation with the small PV panel that is mounted on top of the container, and which means the structure, of course, is self-sustaining, using its own energy. So this is another example, of course. So water treatment is associated with green energy production in order to reduce the water print, and we did not have to need, for example, to add other energy structure or to modify electrical generators or at the level of this industry. As a conclusion, this is our message when it comes to the cost of batteries. The car industry actually boosted the production and the competition of batteries throughout the world. Now we have batteries which cost less than that produce less for less than 500 euros per kilowatt hour, and batteries, they have followed this positive trend, economic trend, and that will, of course, will make projects really realistic, such as the solar photovoltaic system that is now, which price is really dropping over the last few years. As I have already mentioned, in the production of green energy by solar PV panels is extremely competitive, and it has a lot of advantages well beyond or in addition to the fact to be labeled green energy. On the modular system that are set in containers, we talk about 1,000 cubic meters per day, and if we have more than 2 containers, then it would be much better to move to skids than integrated in civil engineering structures. So that's why very often when we look at the specificity of the project, we usually suggest 2 to 3 containers maximum. So these solutions are completely autonomous, self-sufficient. They are sized to operate 24 hours a day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the question was asked, what about if we have like clouds or any? Now, these events are already integrated and recovered in our databases that are available for us to be able to size our infrastructures. Sometimes we oversize even our infrastructures, but our elements, weather elements are taken into consideration. The solutions that we suggest in terms of water treatment, they are open. It all depends on the quality of original water and the quality of the target water that we suggest. We suggest usually systems that are really custom tailor-made. These systems, they are containerized and plug and play, and they're very easy to install. This is really a really great added value that our clients appreciate very much. You can have, for example, in the mining industry, we can have then containers on site in mining areas, and we can exploit another mining another site of the if for example, if the mining operator wants to use the same container in different sites, of course they can move it from one place to the other. Thank you very much for listening to me and for your interest. Thank you very much, Ludovic. When it comes to the questions, I think we really have to finish. I have just one question when it comes to different types of renewable energies. When you talked about the wastewater, you did not talk about what we call the heat pumps. This is something that, of course, that is being developed throughout the world, knowing that the wastewater is warmer in winter and inversely in summertime. Do you have any? No. Mainly when it comes to the industry, there are solutions on the market in order for us to recover heat that is available already at the level of wastewater. We did not really focus on these topics. However, when it comes to the production of cold or the recovery of heat, then here we do valorize this type of micromethanization process on what you call them heat flows that come, and we can use it, but we have not yet focused on this type of energy. We have not really focused on the heat that is produced by the wastewater. Thank you very much. And let's move on to the last session, because we still have one last, and we'll go back to Morocco. There is a new so Mr. El Ghali Benenna will make this presentation, and he's responsible, of course, of the energy park of Bengari, which is a quite remarkable park. All different type of technologies are used and are tested. So I'll give him the floor for 15 minutes so that we can finish at least maximum at 6:15. Mr. Al Ghali, please.
Thank you for this introduction. I really wanted to give you also some insights on the activities of IRSN GEP in some more detail, but due to time constraints, I'll try to skip it, at least partly. So IRSN, for those who do not know, it is an institute, a research institute created under the umbrella of the Moroccan Ministry of Energy. Its role is to enhance research and development in Morocco around the topics related to renewable energies and new sources of energy, new applications of energy, and to make a kind of bridge between the industries and the academic research. So we have two tools to do that. The first tool is research infrastructures. I will talk a little bit more in detail about it. And the second tool is a funding agency through which we distribute funding for several types of research activities for Moroccan researchers and also for their foreign partners. Yeah, so in terms of infrastructures, try to go quickly. The strategy beyond that is to try to offer infrastructures that would allow first a kind of accumulation of know-how that could lead later to emergence of new products, new technologies, new startups. And IRSN had done a kind of screening to the priority topics or the most requested topics of research in Morocco with link to renewable energies and energy efficiency. And it appeared that solar energy was the main priority, I would say. This is the reason why the first platform we established was a Green Energy Park, which is a solar dedicated research platform. It's the one you visited with us a few weeks ago. Then we are in the process of completing a second platform dedicated to the second most important topic according to the screening, which is energy efficiency in building and all topics that go with it, smart grids, sustainable mobility, and so on. There is another platform, a third platform that is on projects dedicated to hydrogen ammonia. Another one in the pipe also dedicated to the nexus energy agriculture. And finally, there is a fifth platform that is also on the pipe, and we hope, thanks to the awareness of the policymakers and the general opinion, that this platform will come soon to the ground. There is also another replication of Green Energy Park in Côte d'Ivoire, which is part of our collaboration with the African countries. I might speak about this later more in detail. So this is the Green Energy Park. It is, as I said, dedicated to solar energy mainly, but as it's the first platform in a series of several others, This platform also hosted projects dedicated for other topics, not only solar energy. And among these topics, I could mention topics related to desalination. I would not go more in detail about this, but I would just say that we are working on solar PV, solar thermal, and modeling. And under the solar thermal activities, we had the opportunity to work also on desalination and the drying technologies. And the modeling, there was some work done on the solar resource assessment, and this was translated later to other things that are relevant to our topic today. The same for the green and smart building part, which is almost finished and dedicated to energy. GEP MCI for Green Energy Park Morocco d'Ivoire, which is a smaller version of GEP Morocco. And the new platforms. As I said, there is another platform, the construction related to hydrogen and ammonia. In the beginning, this platform was combined with the water energy nexus platform. But due to the importance that hydrogen topics and ammonia are taking, this was established as an independent, as a separate platform, considering the huge importance of this topic. The agroenergetic value was also initially, and I'm saying this around 5 or 6 years ago, it was planned to be part of the water energy nexus platform. However, due to some new partnerships, it was decided that this platform would be separated from the water energy nexus. And this, I'm sorry, I would skip this part concerning the funding agency, as I guess the time is we are running out of time, so I will skip it quickly. And I go to the water energy nexus platform. As I said, initially this project was combining the concept of water, energy, and food nexus. And under the water energy nexus part, there was also the topic of hydrogen and ammonia, which was separated from this. So here, the main topics that are intended to be treated under this platform are those related to water treatment and wastewater treatment, seawater desalination, pumped hydro water storage, floating PV technologies, tidal energy and wave energy, water efficiency in agriculture and also in industry. And here I have to say that following the same approach we did for Green Energy Park and the Green and Smart Building Park, and the same approach we are doing right now for green hydrogen to ammonia platform, we start with several projects within the available infrastructures. In other words, within the Green Energy Park, projects covering desalination, covering the study of tidal energy, for example, water efficiency, and so on. And once many of these projects start to become mature, and once we have a certain accumulation of expertise, then with our partners, we start the new platform. So in this case, we have already started several projects directly or in partnership with other entities. And I would mention to you really quickly some of these projects. So there is the project DESOL, which had just begun a few weeks ago. The goals of this project is quite specific, as we try to supply drinking and to some other extent irrigation water for remote areas, especially those which have available water, but with mostly brackish water quality. So it's not usable directly either for drinking or for agricultural purposes. And here the goal is first to compare, to model and compare all the technologies that are known in literature, and try to come out with the best technology that would supply water at the lowest cost, of course, using solar energy. But here, the additional constraint we have here is that many, or I would rather say most of these locations are a bit far from the sea. So it's not easy to get rid of the remaining brine water. We cannot just throw it to the sea because we are far from the sea, and we cannot just throw it in the nature because this might lead to severe environmental impacts. So we have to manage this brine, and the goal of this, the second goal of this project, is to come out with a solution that would help manage this brine discharge. Many technologies can be considered in this regard. There is some so-called zero liquid discharge membranes, which use a kind of a recycling of the brine discharge. Of course, here speaking about zero discharge is not 100% correct. There is a certain discharge at the end, but the amount or the quantity is really small in comparison to the classic technologies. There is also the possibility to combine several technologies, reverse osmosis and membrane distillation, for concentrating or at least reducing the volume of brine discharge. So this will be the next steps of this project, as we are now still in the quest of what technologies would really respond well to the terms of reference of this project. Another project with relation to the desalination. This is not a project that IRESEN has led, but rather a project that was funded by IRESEN under the funding agency role, which I'm sorry I could not deep dive into it with you. But if you have any questions in this regard, please just let me know. This project is quite close to the first I presented, but here the project holders propose to combine two technologies for the treatment of a specific type of water that was found in the region of Hamna, underground water with a certain level of salinity. And the goal here was both to test the combination of these two technologies, reverse osmosis fed with the PV modules, and membrane distillation fed with hot water from solar panels. And the second goal was also to try to develop new membranes. So this part of the project was more in the fundamental or in the lab scale research. But in terms of technology combination, as you can see here, a prototype system was installed at GEP. As I said, the platform, although it's dedicated to solar energy, it was also a good place to start new activities and new topics. And this was operating for several years. Now the project has ended, I think, in 4 or 5 years ago. Another project that ended, which targets the water energy mix, but from another perspective. Here, the goal of the project was rather to reduce water consumption in an industrial context. So in this case, in CSP plants. And as the colleague from Egypt has already pointed out in one of his slides, that energy production also consumes water, and it's even more obvious for a CSP. Also, as mentioned by the colleague from Mazen, there was already some effort to decrease water consumption, and it's quite easy to decrease water consumption in for the cooling part of the CSP plant, just by switching from a wet cooled to a dry cooled condenser. However, this generally causes more or less significant drop in the efficiency of the power block. And what we try to do with this project is to try to make a kind of hybrid cooling system that could work in a dry mode during the winter season, when you have a cold weather and when the impact on the efficiency is quite low. And then it's possible to switch partly, not fully, just partly, to a wet cooling mode. Then you have the dry and wet cooling, and then you keep water consumption at a low level, and at the same time you prevent any loss of efficiency during the hot season when you have really hot weather. So that was one aspect, the first aspect of this project. The second aspect was water consumption for cleaning. Of course, for CSP plants with wet cooling systems, water consumption for cleaning is not the largest part. But when you switch to a dry cooling facility, then the major part of your consumption goes to the solar field. And under this project, there was several developments for reducing water consumption for solar field cleaning. And we participated to the development of a cleaning robot for the linear Fresnel concentrators. And we were able to reach a consumption down to 0.1 liter of water per square meter per cleaning, which is really, really low in comparison to manual cleaning, or even in comparison to other types of truck cleaning that are in use right now in some CSP plants. Unfortunately, this is only applicable for linear Fresnel. So in parallel, and after the end of this project, we are still working on development of other technologies for cleaning for other types of concentrators, and also more importantly for PV plants. Another aspect we have already started working on before launching the platform Water Energy Nexus is tidal, concerning tidal and wave power. And here I go back to our modeling team, our modeling department at Green Energy Park, which started first activities at Kherraz by working on solar resources and solar mapping of resources in Morocco. And now they are working on the mapping of tidal energy resources in the Moroccan coasts. So they are doing quite a good job right now, and we have already some good maps giving some insights on where are the best locations to be exploited for solar for tidal energy. Of course, there are some other aspects that are being developed, and many of them are still on the pipe. But this is a set of projects that we are making right now to try to have, as I said, a critical mass before moving to a full-scale research facilities that would allow us to go to another level. Yeah, so for those of you who do not know GP, there are other activities that are being performed beyond the solar power and beyond even water energy nexus, including biomass, wind energy, battery storage, electric vehicles, and so on. And now we have a team that is dedicated to valuation of all the solutions that are being developed at GEP, including what I just mentioned concerning smart cities and electric mobility. And maybe the most famous thing that was evaluated in the last few months is the Aix-Marseille charging station for electric vehicles. We are trying now to do the same for the water desalination solution that I showed you earlier, combining reverse osmosis and membrane distillation, especially for remote areas, and especially with an option for rental, as another colleague has explained for their startup. It might be interesting for some users to have a temporary water desalination station that they could rent, or at least if they are not able to sustain the capex cost, they can just go for this type of business model. In any case, this is one of the projects that, or the technologies that are on the pipe for the valuation. I forgot to mention about the PV cleaning robots that is also being developed in parallel with the Fresnel cleaner robot. Yeah, and several other solutions I might share with you if you are interested. Yeah, so I think it's not necessary to go to talk about this. Maybe it's worth to be mentioned our African network, which allows us to start several cooperation projects with many countries in Africa. So if there are any African countries or African institutions that wish to join us or to start a partnership with GEP or within within Africa Innovation Network, they are all welcome. Yeah, so that was all from my side. Thank you for your invitation, and be happy to if you have any questions.
Thank you, Randy, for the presentation. It's always impressive to see the number of facilities, the number of platforms of research project developed and operated by IRSN. Just could you tell us a few words about the number of people you are at IRSN, please? Researchers, staff, administrative.
Yeah, at IRSN, IRSN alone, there are, I think, something between 34 to 40 people. GEP specifically, we are more than 50 permanents. This year we went beyond the 50 people barrier, and we also have between I don't know, it can go, sometimes it can go to up to 70, 80 people non-permanent, depending on the period.
Yes, and what I want to say also that IRSN have a lot of collaboration around the world with a great research institute around the world, in States, in Switzerland, in Great Britain, etc. So thank you so much for your presentation. Donc, je vérifie dans le chat ces présentations. Donc, merci beaucoup. Donc, on a pu voir effectivement que ces notions d'énergie renouvelable étaient très intéressantes.
Thank you very much. I would like to.
So we see that there are so many questions about renewable energies and their relation with water, desalination, questions about putting in place networks and for desalination, and an observatory also to monitor the renewable energy. There will be one on renewable, there will be of course a report that will be presented to the Dakar Forum with two main sections, one on desalination, the other one on reuse of wastewater, and we will see things that we have heard today because they all complement each other. We absolutely have to continue to develop this type of global approach and integrated approach on how to make the best use of renewable energies. We should not dissociate. We work on the same scales, we work on the same issues, we work on the same. We have seen a lot, and we talked a lot about decentralization. We also talked about what we call targeted usage of water, usage of energy. We talked about desalination, but there are other things that we also tackled, other issues that are linked to energy and water. And I think that this topic is indeed, which is getting more and more important. And but now it is often linked. François, I don't know what they wanted to say with regard to the observatory and to the link between the renewable energies and water. I don't know what they would like to finish. Thank you for giving me the floor. Yes, I was I paid very much attention, of course, to the different presentations, because everything that has been said confirms everything that we have thought of putting in this manual. First, sharing information not only at the local, at the regional, at the national, but also the regional level, like a sector between like Mediterranean and the Mediterranean region and the African region. The exchange of information could be extremely important to everyone, but also in terms of data and information about already installed facilities, but also in terms of network. The networking or the connection between networks, we saw particularly in the case of innovation and research centers, how we can eventually facilitate communication between researchers in various scientific areas. So, and we can have really considerable results, and particularly accelerate results in order not to avoid redundancy, in order to learn from others' experiences, and when results are already there. So thank you. I would like to thank all different lecturers, presenters, speakers who gave very concrete examples on various projects and what are the general considerations that have to be taken into account. And we can probably hopefully we can all meet together at the forum in Dakar, where the topic of desalination and the reuse of wastewater with renewable energies that will be subject to a specific session, as you know, during that forum. We will be presenting not only the report, but we also will give the floor to all those who have already started to share information and to move onward or forward on these different topics. Thank you for all those who had questions. Of course, do not hesitate. You can send your questions. You can send your questions to IME by email, and we'll certainly forward on different speakers. Please do not hesitate to get in touch with us. And the webinar will also be posted, I think, online towards the end of this week, very quickly. So to conclude, I would like to thank Fatima. Thank you, Jauad, Marius. Thank you, Xavier, Ludovic, and Rami, of course, for all your presentations. It was a real pleasure to facilitate the session. I learned so much from all of you guys. Thank you to all participants, and hopefully we meet all each other soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure for us as well.